Yeah.
Yes, there's a notification.
Cool.
And we're live. All right. Hello. Hello, everybody. So it is my week, and I chose. So just a little bit of backstory. This is a 2015 film called Bone Tomahawk. It's a Western. Some people like to call it a horror Western. We'll tackle that a little bit later. Quickly, as I mentioned last week, I am a big horror fan. And so one of my friends, shout out to Joe Lewis, he is a huge Western fan. And I asked for any recommendations for horror films. And he said, well, this one you might like. And so I watched it a few years ago, and then I rewatched it again this week just to have a new experience for this. So this film is, it says, in the dying days of the Old West, an elderly sheriff and his posse set out to rescue their town's doctor from cannibalistic cave dwellers. It has an excellent cast. Kurt Russell, Patrick Wilson, Matthew Fox, Richard Jenkins, one of my favorites, Lily Simmons, Evan Jonigett. I might be pronouncing his name wrong. David Arquette, Fred Melamed, Sid Haig. Whenever I
Yeah,
see him in a movie,
yeah, Sid Haig. He did a lot of Rob Zombie stuff,
oh, he's
like
just got
Devil's
that great
Rejects. Yeah.
face. Yeah, just a great cast. Yeah, I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. I mean, I could go on about it. But what do you guys think? How did you guys enjoy the film?
I love this movie. I saw that it got a little flack on the pace.
Mm-hmm.
Got a little flack on the pace, and I get that. It reminded me a lot, in one way, of The Descent, because The Descent has a bunch of people that they say are the cavemen who just never came out of the cave.
Oh, I saw both of those.
Yeah.
They're pretty cool.
And it reminded me also of The Hills Have Eyes, of which I've only seen the original Hills Have Eyes. But the difference between this and The Hills Have Eyes, besides The Hills Have Eyes, is modern. Is The Hills Have Eyes, which is, who is that? That's
Wes Craven.
That's Wes Craven, but it's early Wes Craven, and it looks so cheap that there are times where you're like, this has to be a snuff film. This has to be a snuff film. And they're all, inbred mutants living in the hills that have eyes, and they steal a family away, and it's like, really, The Hills Have Eyes like that. And but this movie, like, I never thought, like, I suspended my disbelief. Like, I never thought, like, wow, this is like really.
Seth, sorry to interrupt. Sean, what's going on with your audio over there? There's like a lot of background noise, a lot of like white noise in the background.
Is there? Let me see if I could solve that.
Now it's worse. What's the audio that you're using right now?
It's a microphone.
Are you sure? Oh, it's an external microphone.
Yes.
Okay. It may be just too loud. It may be too sensitive.
Okay, I'm closing the window.
Yeah, I think there's just some background noise. Okay, cool.
Okay,
sorry,
Seth, continue.
Seth, continue.
So this one, like, when I saw, like, the violence, I could see how, like, people who can't stand violence would be like, I can't deal with this. But, like, there are some points where you're like, they're carrying around like a leg that's covered in like dust, and it looks like you went to Abracadabra on Halloween and grabbed a plastic leg to come out of your doorway and go, "Hey kids, we don't have any candy, but we have body parts." So, but I don't care. Like, it was really great. Like, my only criticism was the pace, because even in No Country for Old Men, when they kill the pit bulls. The pit bulls are fake, and then one, and I'm fine with that, because then you go, they didn't kill the pit bull, real pit bulls. But I really like. I'm a big Richard Jenkins, and I both studied with Harold Guskin, and so I'm a big fan of him. And then I really liked, and I don't know if it was in the original novel that it's based off of, or if it's a tribute, but his Flea Circus, kind of, Are Things Gonna Go to Hell monologue reminded me of the Flea Circus as things are going to hell in the original Jurassic Park. that David Attenborough, Richard Attenborough, does. He's talking about how he used to run a flea circus, and the children used to be like, "Yeah, I need to." So I like this.
Yeah. Now I'm curious, as the acting coach, what did you think of the cast and their portrayal of each character?
I loved it. I really loved it. I think they're really helped by the fact that it has a writing style which is very like Cormac McCarthy. This is how we talked in the Old West. Like reminded me of like the Wild Bunch or Deadwood with less cursing in it.
Yeah. Definitely reminded me of Deadwood.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same. It's like the same thesaurus that you use when like you're like, I got to take this modern language and make. And some guys can write like that, like they just have an ear for it, and some guys write modern, and then they go through the script, but they're really helped by that. And
the writer of this film also wrote the novel, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I have to say. Like there's one thing that stands out. Like I loved this film, by the way. I thought this was a fantastic film. Though the thing that really blew me away more than anything about this movie was the simplicity of it. Like it's a very straightforward story. I mean, you can give a synopsis. You can basically give a synopsis of this this film in one sentence if you wanted to. A cannibal, a tribe of troglodyte cannibals in the Old West kidnaps a few people, and some of the people from the frontier go after them and try to rescue them. Like that's the whole movie.
Yeah,
they're basically rescuing their beloved friends. And what's that?
You could work for TV Guide. That's what TV Guide was like. Like,
well, right.
Friends go into space, inherit superpowers, and fight a doctor named Doom.
Right, but a lot of the times with other films, if you don't go into more detail than that, you're missing essential parts of the story. But you're not missing any essential parts of the story in this film by doing that TV Guide one sentence synopsis. Obviously, there's details that enrich the story and make it better. But at the end of the day, I'm like, and I think maybe it's because this guy's a musician and he's got all these different artistic talents. And I think I appreciate somebody like a piece of art that can milk a simple concept for as much as as basically you could squeeze as much juice out of it as this movie does. That's what really impresses me by it. Every aspect of the film was really enjoyable for me. The acting was phenomenal. I liked the slow pacing of it. I liked the sort of that it's this sort of like kind of slow adventure with little random. I mean, I like there's like all these like kind of capricious things that happen. Like they're kind of random. But that's sort of what happens when you go on an adventure, like things happen. I mean, the dialogue was strange and wonderful.
Have you ever read?
I don't know. It's like it's. I have to see it again. It's one of those films. I wish I saw it like 2 or 3 times before we did this, because it's one of those movies that I would see over again. And I know that I feel like it's left that sort of. It's like this film is sort of like trying like some dish that you've never had before, that you kind of are like, it gets stuck in your head. You're like, I got to try that again. Because I've never really seen any, like, this film is unlike anything I've ever seen. I've never really seen a movie that does what this movie does. And I can't quite put my finger on what it is about it but it's like, realism. It's the realism. I think it's the fantastic acting. I mean, I think this is one of those films that there's so many, like everybody in this film is masterful. And they're also, with the exception of Kurt Russell, I mean, they're not, none of them are really household names.
Well, Patrick
Richard.
Wilson is really. I mean, he
Well,
did all
Patrick-
The Conjuring, and
Yeah,
that
but
might have been after this. I'm not sure the
that
years.
was after that
Okay.
was after this, and also he's still not like he's still not a household name. I mean, he's not. If you're not into film,
Aquaman.
he was an Aquaman.
I believe he's an
He
Aquaman.
was in Aquaman, Watchmen. He was in Lakeside Terrace, where
Right.
Samuel L. Jackson was a racist.
He's a face that
one.
people recognize, but a lot of people, if you ask them who's that,
True.
what's that
That's a
guy's
good point.
name, they
People aren't
won't
gonna-
they won't know
'cause
his
he's too-
name.
He's too white.
He's
to
not
be
Brad Pitt.
recognizable.
Yeah,
But, yeah, right.
I'll tell
Also,
you, I've met him in person. He's a very nice man, and he's
He's-
a family man. Really good
believe it.
person.
Little
Yeah.
Children is a masterpiece, and he carries that movie.
Yeah.
By the way. But
he's
funny.
fantastic, and
Yeah.
he has also done a considerable amount of television as well. Same with Richard Jenkins. I mean, that guy, like I guess ever since Six Feet Under is when I really fell in love with him as an actor. But like, yeah, the characters were. I liked how. Well, Richard Jenkins' character was really interesting because he's supposed to be kind of an idiot, but in a very endearing way.
Did anybody here ever see Rio Bravo?
No, I didn't.
No, that was Richard Jenkinson's character. It seemed was greatly inspired by the Walter Houston guy. I mean, that was the actor. He played like the Richard Jenkins, like an older dumb guy who's like an assistant deputy to the sheriff. And it seemed to me that Richard Jenkins either didn't want to do the comedy, or he didn't do the comedy well, or it seemed to me it was a low budget. 1.8 million is low enough, and if you're doing a Western, that money doesn't go far at all, because you have the horses and the horse trainers. Westerns are always more expensive. So it seemed to me they shot the movie in like 20 days, maybe 17. So they really had to move it along there, because some of the stuff wasn't some of the cinematography and the framing wasn't perfect, especially some of the performances. Even Kurt Russell's wife's, I don't think they didn't play it like it was the Old West. They played it like they were in acting class, where the actor wanted to show the audience everything that the actor is doing. And I don't know if that really plays in like an Old West, especially with this type of writing where it's inherently funny.
Well, I like it.
There's a lot of jokes, but they all fall flat because he doesn't know how to do it.
I like it when Western films are intentionally inauthentic, because the whole concept of the West is totally inauthentic. It never existed. The way that
there is one thing that's authentic. They're wearing a bowler hat in this, because the Stetson didn't exist in the real Old West.
Right.
Cowboys wore bowlers, but all the cowboys.
But just the idea that the Old West was like this thing, that it really was a big deal and lasted a long time. And it's Hollywood that created the concept of the Old West. The Old West was a very short-lived, post-Civil War, pre-modern kind of like phenomenon that was very limited. And I mean, as Seth pointed out, it really wasn't dominated by Anglo white people. It was dominated more by Mexicans and Native Americans and frontiers, Chinese people. Yeah. And so it's like the whole way that the way that these sort of narratives are crafted, and the character, the typical, I think the biggest lie in Western films are the actual characters that they create. I mean, like this Clint Eastwood character. This is not a real Western character. There's no like Anglo blue eyes guy who comes from out of nowhere and just storms through towns. And like, I mean, a lot of these old the most popular Western films were inspired by samurai films. I mean, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Well, I don't know about that one, but once
that's not true, because the samurai films, a lot of them were inspired by westerns, Hollywood westerns.
Oh, were they?
Yes, the Western is one of the earliest. It's in silent film. there's like guys who like.
Well, yeah, I guess that makes sense because Hollywood is a Western phenomenon. I mean, this is the whole idea of the people went out to California because it was nice and sunny all the time, and it was a great place to shoot film.
And they also wanted to go far away
And
from Thomas
It
Edison.
was cheap at the time too. It
Possible.
was
Yeah.
cheap.
and it was the same, and that's the same West where a lot of this stuff takes place.
Yeah.
So
It's
Yeah,
right.
I think they shot in California as well.
Because
this
I
film
looked-
was shot in
looked.
California.
I thought it was.
It wasn't in the credits. I checked. I looked. I'm like,
Location
didn't
was.
they say?
You're saying the location wasn't in the credits?
Correct, but it was the post production was done in upstate New York as part of the I Love New York post production program or something. It seemed like he got a grant. That he shot the movie and then he got a grant from New York to finish it there or like whatever else because it made $0. It didn't.
Okay,
the box
hold on.
office was
It didn't make much at the box office. It made millions I think it made like 5 million on home video or DVD
really?
sales. Yes.
Did it
So
really?
but I don't know. So that's why I'm curious because it's again like my other cannibal film, We Are What We Are, didn't have a huge box office run, but I think for me, I didn't like how they advertised it because I didn't think it matched this. I don't know how this film was marketed. I know it premiered at Fantastic Fest, but I don't know how many theaters it went to, what kind of money was put into marketing. So I feel like all that has a factor
I think
into
this
it.
one
I don't know if
created,
Hollywood loved it.
Kind of art house, like in
Yeah.
the Angelica or like.
If you don't have those people behind you, you're not really,
Yeah,
Oh,
principal
the white-
photography was.
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Principal
Yeah.
photography began in Malibu, California, which makes sense because you have all those canyons in Malibu.
Yeah.
But also the
Um,
Western sets. That's probably left over from an old TV show.
You think?
Yeah.
You don't think that was a lot? I mean,
They didn't.
oh
build
yeah,
that
the
stuff.
sets. Okay, sure.
Yeah, like the learned goat and stuff.
Yeah, you're right.
You know.
21
They-
Days at Paramount Ranch.
There you go. I knew
Yeah.
it. Did I say it? Did I say
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Mhm. I was
It's
just
just
going to
20
comment
days.
the wife when they're in the cave at the end. And spoiler alert for anyone who's watching and hasn't watched it yet. It is free on Tubi currently.
Yeah, that's right.
And you can always get it on Prime. Tubi, you just have to sit
Tubi.
through the ads. But so there might be some spoilers. So, but when they're in the cave, she has this great monologue actually, where she talks about, and I can't remember, I'm going to butcher it, but she talks about the frontiersmen, about the harshness of it and the reality of it. But she talks about it because people were stupid.
No, they're
Yeah.
idiots.
They're idiots. Yeah. Because she's like, why did you leave rocks for him? And then that was, I loved the movie, of course. I picked it. My only point of where I went, is when Patrick Wilson is on his way to rescue them and he's like going to sleep with his hat on and he gets attacked by 2 troglodytes and they miss. And then he reloads his gun and they I just was like, Patrick Wilson and like his character, and he's disabled currently, and he manages that, and then he manages to somehow climb up the side of the thing to rescue them. I had that was a moment I had to just be like, I really enjoy it. The casting is great. Everything else about this is great. So I have to sort of suspend my belief for like.
That's what I was talking. There's moments in this, like when the bone tomahawk goes through the guy's foot, right?
Yeah.
And it looks like when you're on Instagram and some baker is showing off his cakes that look just like a tin can, and you're like,
okay,
oh, it was just like a Campbell soup, and then he cuts it in half. You're like, it's a cake. Like,
I seriously doubt the foot would have
through the guy's foot. You're like, wow.
Yeah, but even with his disability, like the villains in this film are basically like retarded. They're not.
Yeah, they didn't have a language. The Indian in the learned goat said that these people don't have a language. They don't have a name, so they can't really communicate and stuff.
They implanted some sort of vocal cord. They didn't go into. I mean, I would be curious to hear.
I read it was an animal bone. I think
it was some. They had different ones because the one that Patrick Wilson cut out was definitely like a weaker one than the main guy had like a much deeper one. I would just be curious to see like what they did or.
Well, here's my question then. So I assumed they were a race of people that had that in them when they were born. Another like a bone that grows in their throat. Are you assuming that they modified their own throats with a bone whistle?
Yeah.
I that was what I thought, but
They're doing modifications on themselves anyway. Like
that one guy had face horns.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
but how do they? Yeah, but that's one. That's easy. You take a horn, you put it through your cheek, and it's fine. To put a bone whistle in your trachea.
You just take a bone and you put it in vinegar for a couple days till it's rubbery, and you shove it down somebody's throat, and then it'll harden over time. It'll harden back up.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, these are the people that, with their women, they cut off their limbs and blind them, so they don't have much to do between eating people.
That's why they need her, right? Because they need more women. It's like Mars.
Probably that's what I was thinking.
That's what I thought when they walked past it. I was like, oh, this is how to keep them from running away. And there's more males, and like their culture kind of makes sense. But one of the reasons I love this,
it does make sense. Yeah.
I'm from Bergen County, which has the Ramapo Mountains in it. And is anyone familiar, Judy? Have you been indoctrinated with this about the Jackson Whites of the Ramapo Mountains?
No, I know Weird New Jersey, but I don't know.
Weird New Jersey. I'm going to read something right now.
Okay.
By George Bell.
Wait a minute. All three of you guys are from New Jersey.
I'm actually not from New Jersey. I live in New Jersey now.
Do you know?
Wait, Judy, where are you from originally?
Long Island.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Now, Sean, do you know about the Jackson Whites?
Yes.
In the Ramapo Mountains. Okay, so when I was a kid in summer camp, one day we're going through the Ramapo Mountains, and we had a big, fat, obese bus driver, like 500 pounds, and he would eat burgers. We'd stop at Burger King, and get the bus home late. It was the 70s. And we loved him, Bill the bus driver. And Bill the bus driver one day would just stop the bus and pretend to stall it out. So he stalls out the bus in the Ramapo Mountains. And the kids are like, Bill. And he's like, shut up. Don't you know we're in the Ramapo Mountains? And the Jackson Whites are out. And they will come here. And they will pull you out. And they will eat every last one of you children.
Yeah, you New Jersey folks have your own kind of weird, like, folk horror tradition, don't you?
Folk horror. Here we go. George Weller, reporter at large, about the Jackson Whites' history and origins of a primitive race living in the Ramapo Mountains. They are a mixture of three races: the white, the dated word, forgive me, Negro, and it was when it was written. I'm not saying okay, and the American Indian. Next to being an Indian, the greatest point of distinction for the Jackson White is they are albino. The Ramapos have several entire families of albinos. The queen of the albinos was Nellie Mann. Yeah, the queen, like the beehive.
It's a matriarchy.
She's the matriarch, yeah, like the alien, who in the late 1890s traveled with the Barnum and Bailey sideshow, billed as the wild girl captured in Australia.
I've heard of these guys. What's this clan called again?
They're called the Jackson Whites, but mention the Van Dunks, an albino family, the DeFries family, which branches out all over the Ramapos, and Uncle Willie DeFries, a patriarch of the Jackson Whites, and the only surviving doctor. And that was from the New Yorker on the September 17th, 1938. And now if you look them up, like on Wikipedia, they'll actually tell you what towns you can find them in, one of which is Ringwood.
Ringwood? Oh.
Wait, what do you mean you can find them in, like,
there's large families who are from the Jackson Whites, and they're in
I'm sorry, are they albino? Are they all albino?
I mean, they were reputed to be albino. I've never met them, but in the northern, and my father told me they were albino. But in the northern portion, the Jackson Whites have been located around Sloatsburg, Laytontown, Havershire, New York, and the other two clusters are centered in southern portion of Ringwood and Stag Hill, Mawa, in Bergen County. Camp Gaw. Go Camp Gaw Park. You kids who are camping out in Camp Gaw, be careful, because you might end up in a hill, and they'll take your mother and put, spoiler, things in her eyes and cut off her legs and, get her pregnant, because we need more Jackson Whites. And I believe actually that some of them applied for American Indian reparation services or something like that. But I heard that I can't.
I assume. But so something that Abrams said about the dialogue in the Old West, they did use a lot of big words because, like it was like the manifest destiny idea where we are civilized and we're going to civilize the wilderness. We're going to civilize the frontier. So they always had this hoity-toity high education. That, and also to get educated back then was like a privilege and showed that you're not just a ranch hand.
Yeah,
so
the
you
most
would use these
popular book in the actual Old West was Complete Works of Shakespeare.
Right.
That was
So
the most
yeah,
possible
exactly.
book. But
So I wrote down some of the
when the
words.
invention of Hollywood, it's you
So I
wrote
wrote
down
down some of the words here. Can anybody tell me what a brigand is?
a brigand is a bandit.
Yes.
It's a
Go ahead.
bandit. A brigand is a bandit.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. How about yeah, but he also used words like convalescent, enigma, sustenance.
Convalescent is somebody who's recovering from an illness.
They would use words like enigma. That's
aperture. And capsize, but not
Have you ever
how
read
they're
Civil
normally
War
used.
better?
I just thought that was great. Innuendo. They even used that one too. I just thought that was crazy.
I don't think it's crazy.
I had to look up. No. I just like that. I just like that stuff. It did seem historically accurate to me, which I do appreciate. Yeah, and I did like the whole like realistic aspect of it. There was even one part because with realism, there's no real acts. It's more like a sequences. Like one thing leads to another, and they even hinted at that when Patrick Wilson, when he punched out Matthew Fox for the innuendo about his wife. He hurt his legs some more, and then Patrick Wilson was sitting there, and he's like, "If I didn't do this, then you wouldn't have done that, and they wouldn't have captured my wife and stuff." And I just thought that was kind of telling because you don't really see that sort of thing, even though it had kind of a happy ending. Because I don't like it so much when movies there's always like one survivor left. And it's usually the hero. Like I don't like that stuff. I think it's kind of cool that they did rescue what's the wife, and Richard Jenkins is still alive. And then as you're leaving, you hear Kurt Russell die because he uses the 3 bullets on like the 3 remaining troglodytes in the thing, and then the movie just stops. Kind of just like how it just began, which I always kind of enjoy that stuff because there wasn't like that one moral theme, but it was more like like battling ideas of like Christianity and like morality versus chaos. And
you know what this movie made me do is research the whole concept of a troglodyte or a caveman, and it seems that there's generally a consensus among anthropologists that there were very, very few, if any, confirmed examples of human tribes at any time in human history that lived primarily in caves. So that even the people that we think of as cave dwellers, they would only pass some of their time in those places, but they didn't actually, that wasn't like their main domicile. That the caves that we find paintings in and remains, that these were more like temples. These were places of worship or places where certain rituals would take place, but that these weren't fundamentally environments that humans lived even most of the time in.
Well, have you ever gone in a cave? Like gone spelunking or like
one time?
Yeah, a few times in my life.
Like a cavern, like in the
I've been in caves and caverns before.
There is a darkness that is unbelievable when they turn out the lights so that
that's
people
what the tour guide did. Yeah.
That's what the tour guide did. You won't walk away from the tour. They turn out the lights when the last person.
It's pitch black unless you have a torch.
Pitch black, and the other thing that people don't realize is the amount of silence in a cave is you will start hearing your heartbeat. You will start hearing your gas. You will start hearing everything in your body. They made a room that's completely soundless, I think it's in. I can't remember what university it is.
I know, I've seen it though. Yeah.
Is it England? Has it Oxford?
No, it's
and
somewhere in
also
America.
bears live in
The
caves.
longest, there are cave bears in
And
caves.
other apex predators. I mean,
Apex
it's like
predator, yeah. But the thing is that they the longest anyone can last in the soundless place, which assuming if you went deeper into a cave, you would get to places like that, is 45 minutes. The length of a high school period. It's the most anyone can take before the sounds of their own body. They can't, and they're hearing their own thoughts. They can't take it anymore, and they have to get out of there. Everyone taps out at 45 minutes.
yeah,
So,
it doesn't seem like an environment that would
the
really attract
troglodyte
us.
thing is also Lovecraftian. He talks about
Yeah.
people who are inbreeding in caves.
Well, also H.G. Wells with the Morlocks.
The Morlocks.
You know, I think there was a lot of inspiration from that in this film as well.
Yeah, but the whole idea of like a race of things, like there are blind cave fish and bats have terrible eyesight, some of them that live in caves. Like this idea of like things that went into caves and like lost eyesight and gained other ability. It does happen in nature. So the idea of like, and albinos freak us out. The albino, these guys are not albino, but they look like they're covered in dust and they're paler than Indians, and even their costume design is all pale. So they get this sort of like almost weird ivory on ivory kind of look, covered in dust, or like tribal people cover themselves in like ochre or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then the other thing that I thought was interesting is that they the ones in The Descent are albino too. They're all white and grub-like, and they make clicking sounds to communicate with each other like bats.
Mm-hmm. I think they're blind too.
And they're blind too. Yeah, that's right. They are blind.
They're blind.
And they eat people very quickly.
Well, they have sharp nails, I believe. I haven't seen the film in a while.
I have, yeah.
They're all boys too, as I remember. I don't think there were any females. There was a bunch of men.
In The Descent? I thought it was all females.
No, the cast is female, but the humans that go down there are a bunch of like bitch feminists in shape spelunkers that go to this cave and then they meet up with a bunch of, emaciated.
Yes, they are all.
Yeah, I know they're all played by the guys who was in that director's first film about werewolves. It's the same actors who played the werewolves here.
You're talking about The Descent, not this film.
Can you guys?
Okay.
It seemed like this movie was made by vegetarians. That whole part in the cave where they take the guy, flip him up, they debowel, they scalp him, put the scalp in his mouth to quiet him. Then they hammer a sharp stake in his mouth and he's screaming, and they turn him upside. Then they disembowel him. Then they turn him upside down and chop him right in the balls.
Why would that make them vegetarians?
No, like it's like they're promoting, like the filmmakers are promoting being a vegetarian.
No, they're promoting
like
not
meat
being
is murder.
People read
Like
it.
it's meat is murder.
There's no meat is murder.
No, I just thought it was a ritual thing.
It's a ritual thing.
Which, by the way, I couldn't even watch it this time. I saw the first time I saw the movie, I watched that part, and it's still so vivid in my mind. And I'm the horror fan.
Really?
But there's something to it that is like they shoot it more in a realistic way. It's not like Quentin Tarantino where there's like blood squirting everywhere and you're like,
no,
Predator.
insert
It's not.
shots.
It's kind of like it took me a long time just to get through films like Braveheart.
I love going to Chelsea Market.
Well,
so I couldn't watch it this time. I was just my husband watched it, and I was like, I hear the sounds of it, and I'm just like,
I think it's like maybe it was because it's the first time I saw it. The absurdity of it just like overshadowed anything that would have like creeped me out about it. I mean, just the whole like I don't know. I guess maybe I don't watch enough horror, and I don't. Whenever I see horror, I don't take it. I can't take it seriously. It looks performative to me.
Yeah. Well, this writer director does not see this as a horror film. He sees it as a straight up Western. So there's this whole thing of, I even noticed when I got it on Tubi or no, I searched for it on Roku. They had it listed as a comedy.
Well, that's the other thing. That's what I'm saying. Well, I was trying to describe this. I just got home and I haven't seen my parents in like 6 weeks. I just got to their place.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to explain to them the podcast and also the film that we're doing. And I'm describing like I'm describing it to my mother. She's like, oh, so it's like a comedy. And my mom
That's
is
what
not
I
a horror
said.
person, right?
Yeah.
But
There's a
I
lot of
think
jokes.
that but can't you really say that about every horror movie?
Absolutely.
Child's Play, like
Hmm.
Chucky, like a killer doll, a guy
Child's
whose
Play
face
3.
looks like an inverted slice of pizza that he haunts your dreams at night.
Yeah,
And
it's kind of like a
I mean,
perverted
it's
comedy. It's
yeah, it's
really just it can take some comedy, push it, and add elements that are meant to horrify you.
Yeah.
yeah,
You know,
for sure.
but then I actually think, and I love shooting horror films too because it's so much fun because you create this like intense fear, but it's just like it's a whole lot of fun, especially with special effects crews. I don't know. I think it's like a certain type of personality that is drawn to that they're just super fun. So anyway, I totally forgot what I was saying because I was like thinking about working on sets.
No.
What I was gonna say is, in good horror film, there should be moments of comedy because what happens is when you have the audience sitting there, and they always say that horror films make great date movies, right? You have people sitting there, they're on the edge of their seat, their heart is supposed to be racing, they're supposed to be sitting there waiting in apprehension. And if you do that for too long, it has a diminishing return.
It's
So you need
exhausting.
those moments of levity to sort of like take you out of it so then they can
Yeah.
startle you again.
It's also
Hopefully,
you have to care
no.
about the characters,
Yes.
or else you're going to be bored out of your mind. And the
Yeah.
humor, I mean, I think one of the things that he said in this film, he said there's a problem in a lot of westerns is that like there's too much seriousness. If there
Mhm.
isn't a lightness and a levity to the dialogue between the characters, you can't you don't care about them enough, and then you lose interest. And he made a point in the writing of the script to make the dialogue somewhat lighthearted and to make the characters to create some banter so that
Mhm.
you actually like them, and
Mhm.
every character is likable in this.
Mhm.
Just take the four main guys who are on this adventure together. They all have very distinct personalities and almost caricature type
Mhm.
personalities. Like you've got the sheriff who's very sheriff like. You've got his like deputy who's kind of like his dumbass sidekick. You've got the smartass like pretty boy who like knows everything and whatever, and then you've got like the hero who's like wounded, and everybody plays their role almost to an extreme, but that's what makes you like them, and that's what makes you care about what happens next. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's just like
They're all invested in their
yeah, they're
characters.
invested in their characters, and that makes us invested in them. So,
Yeah. Even
um,
down to like little details. Like there's just two that I'll mention quickly. The one is where Patrick Wilson's wife asks him, "Can you read the poem?" He's like,
oh
"Can
yeah,
I do anything for you?" And then she doesn't want to read it and she leaves and then he reads it out loud and it's just like a letter and he's like, "That's a poem." But it was
No,
just
he
I
like
had
said
to
something that
that.
was
watch that.
so subtle.
It's so subtle, and it totally grabbed me, and that's the
Yeah.
only scene that I went back and watched 3 times.
Yeah. It's
That is
just a
Because
great
I was like,
scene.
what did they just do there? It was so interesting.
Yeah.
It was such a yeah.
And
Like
then
it's like the little things like that in
the
this
little
film
things
that
like
make
that.
it special that I
Yes.
can't really I can't even I have to give the director and writer credit because I have nothing to compare it to. It's completely original
Yeah.
in the writing.
It's so simple and it's so specific. And then the other moment is when Matthew Fox's character, I think his name is Boone or Booner.
Booner.
Um, is it Booner?
Paul,
Okay, so
John
his
Booner.
horse. So when the
Yeah.
bandits come in and they take the horses and he's like, "Well, mine won't." And they show him and he has this moment. I just thought it was like a beautiful choice to really humanize him. And there's something that I read, I think it was in Wikipedia or in an article where the director talks about how he writes and how as most writers, there's bits and pieces of him. And they said anyone that knows him that watched the film knows that he is most related to the character of Boone when he goes on to "I'm the smartest man because I'm not married."
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's
He
another
is not
joke.
married and has no the director what's the correct Zoller, he said he is not married and he has no interest in getting married. And he wrote 40 films before this one.
Right.
Just as a fun trivia
I
fact.
don't think those facts have anything to do with each other. personally.
But he had a lot. Well, as a screenwriter, it takes a lot of time
Oh,
writing to
I'm being
perfect your
facetious.
voice and the craft of it,
Yeah.
because you have to know writing in order to sort of break the molds.
Sure.
And I think the writer did a really good job, and I think that that's why they were able to get such a stellar cast
Yeah.
to it, because these are really good actors, even though it was shot quickly. I think they had a few other, Timothy Oliphant, Peter Sarsgaard, and Jennifer Carpenter were slated for it, to play the Wilson Fox and the wife's character, but they had a scheduling conflict. But they're all, again, these are all well-known actors. Maybe not
Matthew
too.
Fox. I think he's brilliant. I love everything
Yeah.
I love
Peter Sarsgaard, a couple of years ago, someone told me that he has 50 scripts on his desk and 100 under his desk. Those are his two piles. Things get sorted into, I will read this, and it can go onto the pile on my desk, and then everything else is slushed through to like, well, maybe I'll read this if I get through these 50 on my desk. And he floats independent films like he.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I bought a cap gun. I haven't seen one of
Don't
these.
point it directly at the camera, okay?
But I haven't
Don't want
seen
any of
one
us
of
getting hurt.
these in years, and I had to buy it. So it's kind of loud, but I want to shoot it. Can I, or is that? I would like.
Okay,
in
Cowboy.
honor of the movie.
Okay, Cowboy, you got this.
Go for it, Cowboy. Do you want to say something, Cowboy, before you shoot it?
I'm sorry for saying that. Shit. No, wait. What if?
Here, I'll give you a cue. You're so fast. Why don't you drop? I won't even put my hand in my belt.
I can't stand the innuendo.
So now I'm going to get really, really slow. I'm going to shoot you with this plastic bottle.
I said stop right now.
You know, it's really hard to hit somebody with a handgun if you're
Stop moving.
Yeah.
That's another thing that's a myth. The whole like gunfight thing. Most gunfights were like one guy would come in and the other guy was already hiding, to ambush. There was no like.
There's no drawing and
no draw. Yeah, there's not. No, that's left over from like Napoleonic duels and stuff like that. You want to believe that
happened. I'm sure
but no.
It happened once. I'm sure it happened because it was illegal to kill somebody if they drew on you first, because it was self-defense. So, I mean, wait. Have you guys seen Shane? You guys haven't seen Shane?
I've seen Shane. My whole family's seen Shane.
All right.
That's my friend Joe Lewis's. I think that's his favorite movie. He named his son after him.
His son Shane.
The Jack Palance character?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that is one of the biggest like mythology of the West movies is Shane.
It is. That's why I'm surprised. It's like, John Wayne, there are some movies John Wayne made that were good. Some of them were good. That's all I'm saying. Just because he's there in a cowboy outfit doesn't make it corny.
Yeah, there's some good John Wayne movies.
All right. So is that any other final thoughts? I think I've said everything that I wanted to say.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great movie. Yeah, I mean, I think it defies genre and categorization, and it's just a great film on its own merits. And if you like Westerns, you should see it. If you like horror, you should see it. If you don't like either of those genres, you should still see it. I think it's just a great film, and I'm really eager to check out more of this. I want to check out this guy's music. And how do you pronounce his name? Zahler?
I think it's
Zahler?
Zahler, but
Zahler?
I don't know.
Yeah, I really want to check out more
Greg
of his
Zahler.
stuff, his novels.
This
guy.
And credits.
Yeah, he did all the music for the film, and he's a musician. He's got I think he goes by the name Czar, and he performs with other. He is like Czar and somebody else. I don't know. Look him up.
Was this his directing debut as well?
Yes, this was his directorial debut. So I don't know. That's all I got. I was very pleased with this.
I really like this movie. The casting, the horses is also good. No one's on the same colored horse, but they are all classic Western looking horses. I think you got a
Like the Appaloosa
paint. You got an Appaloosa. So it's nice. And also, I don't know if you can do it, but I ate eggplant in a red sauce while watching, and it just so happened when they started eating the guy that I just was like, love. I just take an eggplant, just smothered in red sauce, and then I ate corn while he was holding the leg and chewing. I was eating corn on the cob. I don't know, man. I just was like,
hungry.
And afterwards, the thing I like to do after I watch a cannibal movie, whether it's the one Born This Way that we watched before, because obviously Judy has a cannibal fetish. So when what's his name?
They're just good movies.
You want to do a movie with a Hammer? That guy Justin Hammer. What was his name? The guy they put away for his cannibal fantasies. The guy who was in all those Armand Hammer.
Armin Mueller.
Yeah, Armie Hammer was like he was totally.
Armie Hammer, yeah.
Armie Hammer was like his fan. He has cannibal fans. If only Judy had, got with him, they would have had,
They caught him with some crazy stuff. He's not.
I know.
But he comes from money. That's like Hollywood
stuff.
Yeah,
he's from the Hammers who did business with Stalin for the first American corporation that did. But then the other thing about this is I just really think that it's a thing that if you want to make your movie, just make your movie. There must be so many people out there. It's like I have a weird idea, and genre smashing is just so you just take them and you put it together like that. It's like
absolutely
good. And the last thing I would say is after I watch these movies, I always think to myself, so do it with the people you love. If I just started doing this with Alive, if you were, with some of your family members or with the four of us, and you had to survive, kill us and eat us, who would you kill, and what part would you eat first?
Seth's calf muscles. Definitely. We'll do the. We'll make some really nice. It'll be like wing night, giant wing night with Seth's calf.
God.
We can't see him, and
it's
not high enough. But it's all right.
You have to do it like a nice long.
They haven't earned. The audience hasn't earned that yet. That's
another time.
Yeah,
I can't. I'm not gonna lay on my back and do that.
Anyway, any other thoughts, guys? Before I introduce next week's film.
I just 310 to Yuma had bad acting too because they just took their acting.
Which one, the original or
the one with Russell Crowe and Chris Bale? That wife in there, I think it was Gretchen Mol. She did a horrible job at 310 to Yuma. That's all I'm saying. It was a different time back then. People they would present themselves in more pleasantries of the old world because they're still like
in this imaginary time that doesn't really exist.
That's all. Well, I'm just saying it's like rough and tumble, and they're basically camping, but there are still pleasantries that abide, and that's where some of the comedy comes from. And the actors missed that. It was in the script, but Kurt and Matt did it well. But other than that, it was anyway. That's my final thought. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Cool.
All right.
All right. So I got a good segue here. This film is another, I would say, genre smash. This is a movie that should have never been made, but I'm really, really glad that it was. The film that I picked for next week is going to be Edmund, 2005. It was Edmund is a play that David Mamet wrote in 1982, and then it took I guess 23 years for somebody to get the bright idea to turn this into a movie. Edmund is it's a very twisted, demented story, but it's a thriller and borderline horror, but it's really just sort of like a psychological thriller. Very Kafka-esque. It's basically it's a mental downward spiral of a protagonist. I'm not going to give any more away. I highly recommend that you guys, if you get a chance to read the play before you see the film. It's a relatively short play. It's a relatively quick read. I read the play on Seth's recommendation, and it blew my mind. I was like, this is one of the coolest plays I've ever read in my life. And then I found out they made a film out of it, and that it was directed by Stuart Gordon, who's the same guy who did Reanimator, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, And yeah,
From
I mean,
Beyond or something. He did From Beyond.
I met him. I interviewed him at Comic-Con.
oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
wait,
and
he
he
did
passed
just
away
another one, I
recently.
believe.
He passed
So
away, yeah.
rest in peace, Stuart Gordon. He died in 2020.
Yeah.
So we'll do this in honor of him. And I mean, the film did terrible. I think it cost millions to make, and I think in the high 8 figures, maybe low 9 figures, but it did $240,000 in the box office. It didn't get a very wide release. It doesn't have really good critical. I mean, everybody agrees that William H. Macy is an amazing actor and did a great job in it as the protagonist. But like, this film is very strange and very wonderful, and every time it's one of those films, it's like every time I see it, I want to see it again. I'm like how did they make this thing anyway?
What year was it?
2005, and the play was written in 1982. The film was made in 2005, and it stars William H. Macy. Joe Mantegna has a small role in it. Mina Suvari, Denise Richards, Julia Stiles, Bokeem Woodbine. I don't know if you guys know who that is. He's
I
a
recognize
fantastic actor.
Yeah.
Is that the black guy?
Yeah, black guy from I'm trying to think what I first saw. He was in Crooklyn.
Recognize that name.
He was in Jason's Lyric, Panther, Dead Presidents. This is a very hardworking. This guy's been in a lot of films and television. He was in The Sopranos. He played the rapper Massive Genius in The Sopranos.
Oh, that's him. I know. Okay, I know him. Yeah. I've seen him around. He's got nice eyes.
He's been in a lot of stuff. Yeah, he's been in Law and Order. He's been in a lot of TV, a lot of film. He was in he was in Fargo, the TV adaptation. Yeah, fantastic actor. Does a great job in this film. One of the most interesting roles I've ever seen. Anyway, that's all I got for that. Edmund 2005 next week. I'm not sure where you can see it, but I know it's streaming on several services. I know you can get it on Amazon and Apple, I'm pretty sure. But you may be able to stream it for free on Tubi. I'm not sure, but we'll see.
Cool.
All right.
Peace out.
Like and subscribe.
Smash those buttons.
Smash the buttons. All of the buttons. Comment.
Tell your friends.
All that stuff. Tell your friends. Yeah, for sure.